Hi, everyone. Welcome to the December 28th episode of PubTalk Live, the live publishing talk show, airing the second and fourth Saturday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm your host, Sarah Nicolas. I'm a young adult author, the current managing director of Pitch Wars, and I'm also a library event planner. Just a reminder, you can subscribe to reminders via email by clicking on the link in the description so you don't miss a show. You can also follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at PubTalk Live. And of course, like and subscribe right here on YouTube. And if you'd like to support the show, you can find a link to the Patreon near the end of the video description down below. That mainly pays for like technology costs. So, and thank you so much to our Patreon supporters we're gonna list them later. And today I have two guests that I'm very excited about. And I'm going to introduce my guest co-host first. Heidi Heilig is a young adult novelist and theater writer. Her books included The Girl from Everywhere and the Shadow Player series. She holds an MFA from New York University in musical theater writing, of all things. And she's written books and lyrics for shows including the Time Travelers Convention, Under Construction, and The Hole. So please welcome to the show, Heidi.
Hi, good to see you. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Oh, it's really good to see you. I'm so excited that you agreed to come on because when I was even just like thinking about the show, you were like one of the first persons that I thought of wanting to have on. So I'm so excited you're here.
It's nice to be here. I've been in Hawaii and I've been kind of out of it because of the holidays. So it's good to like get my brain started and like talk to human beings and like not be, just in like island time constantly. So good to see you.
Yeah, it's like the middle of the day over there, right?
Yes, it's like 3 p.m. So or 4, something. I don't even know. It's the afternoon. It's nice.
Okay.
Birds are singing.
So the first thing is I just want to mention the viewer poll, and I dropped a link to that in the comments on YouTube. So if you haven't voted in that yet, make sure you go and vote it. And this is relevant to something we're going to talk about today. It's do you belong to a writers organization? And just to let you know, Twitter only allows you to have like 4 options. So I wasn't able to be like as, succinct as I wanted to be. So if you're in an international writing group, just like go ahead and include that in the national writing group. And then if you're like on an online writing group, feel free to do whatever you think fits best. Because I wasn't able to include all those different options.
Yeah, the polls are really short. It's like it's like joke polls, but I'm glad that it's a good question to ask.
You can only have 25 characters for each answer.
Yeah, so. Not enough.
Yeah. Ebony is here. Ebony says hello.
Hi.
Ebony has been here almost every episode, I think.
Oh, that's awesome.
Kendra as well says hello.
Hey, Kendra.
Yeah, so this is like a weird time of year. And I was kind of thinking that we wouldn't have a lot of news to talk about, but that turns out not to be the case.
It's like the tricky news. It creeps up on you. Everyone wanted to get dramatic for Christmas.
I feel a little bad. I feel like I kind of wished this into existence by like hoping we would have something to talk about.
No, it's like, everyone gets around the dinner table and they have to fight, like it's just people fighting, except for, not at the dinner table and maybe grosser, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah. There's just no food flying.
That's true.
You think, maybe.
I mean, I feel like in this situation, anything could happen. So
it's true.
So if you don't know what we're talking about, I'll try to summarize as briefly as I can, and then we'll talk about a little bit about it. So just before Christmas, it was revealed that popular romance author and former board member Courtney Milan had been censured, suspended, and banned from leadership roles in the Romance Writers of America, which is commonly called RWA, for calling out racist tropes in a book written by an editor of a publishing house on Twitter. There was obviously immediate outcry and criticism. The board rescinded their decision, and then most of them, women of color, citing a lack of trust in leadership, resigned along with many other officers and volunteers. This includes the president. Over the past couple of days, a lot of information has come to light showing a pattern of dubious behavior, including procedures being followed or changed, complaints from marginalized authors not being followed up on at all, the ethics committee being secretly superseded, and a lot more. And so in summary, RWA, one of the, if not the largest professional writers organization in the country, is in crisis due to years of essentially unchecked bigotry. I'll leave links in the description later tonight if you want to learn more about the situation, because there is a summary that it's like several pages long. So again, this is just like the highlights. But currently many, right? Currently, many chapter leaders and other leading voices are petitioning to recall President-elect turned President Damon Swade and asking for the executive director's resignation. Many marginalized authors and allies have chosen to leave the organization entirely, but others are choosing to stay and fight, unwilling to leave RWA's vast resources in the hands of officers and members who have ignored or perpetuated racist and homophobic transgressions. So that's a lot.
It's so much. It's so much, but it's such an old story. It's like tale as old as time. Like, I feel like we're all struggling with that constantly. Every few months, it's something. I mean, it's terrible that it's such a huge organization, but I feel like it's been a long time coming. I know Courtney's been speaking up against racism in romance for years now. And so have so many other people, mostly authors of color. Mm-hmm. I guess it was kind of finally boiled over.
Yeah. And I actually wrote that summary last night. And so we even have there's the conversation has kind of shifted today and last night, focusing on Damon Swade, and a lot of people are talking about him and different things that they have experienced with him over the years. And I do want to say, this really took me by surprise because I've always been friendly with Damon. He goes to a conference that I always go to, a small conference, and he has always been very nice and supportive of me, but I mean, that doesn't mean, obviously, it doesn't mean he hasn't done these things, right? I was just surprised by them.
It's so hard, right? When someone, because, can I say jerks? Okay, I'll say jerks. I won't use the swears. Okay, so jerks are always jerks to only a few people, right? Or else they wouldn't get anywhere. Very few people are jerks to everyone. And so I think it's uniquely, it's worse, obviously, for the people who are directly affected, but there's this unique, weird feeling to having been friends with someone who's suddenly revealed to be a jerk. You're like, whoa, what did I miss? What did I participate? And then you doubt yourself and your own sense of how to keep yourself safe and keep others safe. It's it's not a good feeling for anyone involved.
Yeah. Ebony says it's so sad and unfortunate. It is.
It really is. It really is. It's such a big group. And I know there are a lot of good people in it. And, they've been doing good work. I know the Ritas last year, wasn't it last year where there were big strides made? Mm-hmm. But it's really sad to see such, I guess with any progress, there's always backlash, but it's hard to see it happening. But maybe out of the dust, it could be like a phoenix. It can rise new after all of this dross is burned away. So,
well, I know some organizations have gone through similar things, like SFWA, the Science Fiction Writers of America, had that blow up a couple of years ago, and they seem to be doing better. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then, of course, Pitch Wars, which I'm involved with, had that dust up 2 years ago. And I think what happened there is similar to what needs to happen here. And so Brenda, who's the founder of Pitch Wars, basically handed over the running of the organization to a committee of people, and most of the people on that committee are in some sort of marginalized identity. And she really listened to what people were saying, and she apologized, and she made steps to make sure that it didn't happen again. And so a lot of people are calling for the resignation of the remaining board members, because at least 8 of them have resigned.
That's a lot. That's a lot. It's hard to build anything of that. But I can also see the other side, because when you have you start with nothing or no institutional memory, it's hard to sort of keep things going, but maybe it all needs to go. I don't know. I mean, obviously people who are on the inside of the board and on the inside of RWA itself would know better. But it just seems like such a hard thing to come back from. But there are steps. There are obviously steps that other people have taken and that can be taken to do better in the future. And I hope that they complete it. And it's not just like the apology and then not the action, because too often I see there's the apology step, but not the action step. And that's the hardest part, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say something, but I was listening to you and then I forgot. The staff members. So a lot of people are coming out and saying that staff members have kind of diverted ethics complaints, especially complaints related to authors of color. And there have been a lot that have come out and that never made it to the ethics committee. And so I think we're going to need, in order for people to have trust in the organization again, we're going to need to see a change in the staff as well.
Yeah.
So that's, anyone else have anything to add? Ebony, can I ask you, because I know you're watching, how does my mic sound? So I changed it up a little bit today, and so I wanted to make sure I'm not like way louder than Heidi or way quieter than Heidi. And I know it takes a couple of seconds for it to like kind of for the comments to come through. So I'll wait until I see that.
Okay. Just sorry about that little blip. My son came into the room and was like, "Hi, where's a diaper for my baby?" So
okay.
Sorry, family stuff.
He had something to say about the RWA thing.
Yeah, where's the diaper? We kind of there's a mess. No, yeah. He's not quite at the age. If there were some kerfuffle though in the early readers, he would definitely be all over that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hopefully nothing happens with that group.
Oh man. Okay, so they said that sounds good. So cool.
Right.
All right. Moving on then, I guess.
Yeah, let me see. I know there's actually a ton of news. So we have tariffs on goods from China. Tariffs on goods for China that were supposed to go into effect on December 15th were suspended, which is a big relief for publishers of picture books, coloring books, and drawing books. These books were exempt from the first round of tariffs in September and would have taken a hit for this round. And Maria Palante, president and CEO of the Association of American Publishers, said, "We look forward to the removal of all tariffs on books, returning us to our nation's longstanding policy of not imposing tariffs on educational, scientific, and cultural materials."
Yeah, I like that little jab at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of a little, but that's why I always love the quotes that are so succinct and kind of well-rounded and just a little bit like, but it's a children's book publisher, so they are always very careful. But yeah, speaking of kerfuffles with picture books and early readers, I'm glad to know that we are not, I don't know. It's so hard. It's so hard with money now. I feel like the real problem is that wages are so stagnant that it's so hard to pay for books and pay books what they're really worth. I know that tariffs are not exactly the same thing, but I think that making books harder to access is always a bad choice. But at a certain point, I think that it all comes back to wages and the need for a little more money in the pockets of readers that so they can afford books that to give to their kiddos and then fill their libraries.
Yeah, and we've seen these Chinese tariffs affect the consumer price of goods, and so we definitely don't need the price of children's books to go up more.
Yeah,
I know.
It's true. Yeah. I think. Well, isn't there also something with printing? The paper has been affected. Obviously as well.
Yeah, there's like a paper shortage. Yeah, there's a really good Twitter thread. I don't remember where it is that talks about that. But. Well, they won't be rising because of this, so that it's been suspended, right?
Suspended, for the December section. It was supposed to go into effect earlier, and then they suspended it again. So that's good. They had a first round of tariffs, but then suspended them. I guess I wonder when or if people are going to calm down. People in the government are going to calm down about this pseudo trade war junk.
Yeah.
Back and forth. I don't know.
All right.
A pride thing to me, but
yeah, it definitely seems like it. And who knows, with this administration, it might change next week. So hopefully not.
Yeah, fingers crossed for November.
Yes. So we have some good news, finally. Yeah, so in the last episode, we talked about Mysterious Galaxy search for a new owner and location, and they have found both. And so they have a couple that has agreed to buy the store, and they found a new location already, and so they're going to remain open. And everyone is keeping their jobs. Everyone who works for Mysterious Galaxy.
So nice, especially for the holiday season. That's like feel-good news.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. It was like a big, I know a lot of people were trying to boost that really hard, so.
Yeah, speaking of bookstores, I read that George R.R. Martin opened a bookstore.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, now this is also a bit of me, but like I have been on deadline for this book and behind deadline for my next book for ages and ages and ages. I'm sorry to my editor if you're here. But like I was thinking about how many people yell at George R.R. Martin for not getting his next book done, and then I saw the news saying that he had opened his own little bookstore, and like people were like, just finish your book, and he was like, well, we will definitely stock my book when it's done in the bookstore. And I felt like I feel so bad for that guy, because how hard it I feel like it's hard to finish a book for me, and the pressure is not at all comparable to the kind of, 7-8 book series, like people waited for years. I remember reading that series when it came out in 1996, and it's been so long. I stopped reading and I said I would not pick them up again until the last book comes out, but I will definitely read it when it comes out. But I feel like pressuring him is like, I can't get behind that anymore, because I know how bad I am at deadlines. But I wish George R.R. Martin luck in his bookstore.
Oh, yeah.
I hope he finds peace and some time to write.
Yeah, and I wasn't entirely sure either, like how really involved he is with it, or if he's just like the owner.
It's probably a pet project. I mean, if I had $1 bazillion, I would definitely open a bookstore, because why not?
Yeah.
How fun. Yeah.
All right. Bookscan reported on the top selling books of the decade, with the first 3 spots all going to E.L. James.
Speaking of romance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every title in the top 10 featured a female main character, and also was adapted into a movie, showing us Hollywood's powerful influence on book sales.
Yeah. And the ladies' powerful influence as well. The buying power of people who like female leads and read female leads and appreciate them. It's such a good thing to see.
Yeah. I'll leave a link down below later tonight where you can see all of the top 10, but you're not going to be surprised by any of them. They're the usual suspects. So
yeah. Whenever you say I write YA, it's going to be, like insert book here, like one of these. So more news, Pearson is selling its final 25% of shares in Penguin Random House to Bertelsmann, a German company, which will now have 100% ownership. Pearson has been struggling with decreasing revenue in their educational division, and many think they need the cash.
Yeah, so Pearson was the original owner of Penguin, right? Mm-hmm. And then Random House, or Bertelsmann was the original owner of Random House. So basically,
could be a good merger, right? Books, more books. No, you think it would be bad?
I don't know. I don't know whether it'll be good or bad. I honestly have no idea how this will.
It's so hard
people.
to tell.
Yeah.
It's so hard to say what leadership will do with a company.
Yeah, sometimes acquisitions are good and sometimes they're not. So
yeah.
All right. Let's see. So California has a new law going into effect January 1st that is meant to reclassify what it means to be an employee versus a contractor. And a lot of people are still trying to figure out what that is going to mean for the publishing industry. I know it's really shaken up like bloggers and journalists, because the guideline that's been given for them is 35 pieces, so they can work on 35 stories basically before they're considered an employee. And so a lot of companies, like blogging companies, have either discontinued their relationship with California writers or slowed down, their assignments that they're giving them. And I know people, writers in California, are really struggling with this.
And this was all meant to zing Uber, wasn't it? And Lyft and all the other gig economy stuff. And now it's interesting because it is, I think, unfortunate, and I think it's unfair to a lot of freelance writers who make their living that way. But I think it's interesting because it exposes a flaw in the long-standing freelance writing economy, that maybe they should have been treated better for longer, and maybe they should have been more salaried or given better healthcare or more perks.
Yeah.
After, getting, hundreds and hundreds of pieces out of them, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like everyone can see the flaw, or a lot of people can see the flaw in gig economy jobs like Uber and Lyft, but maybe it's less easy for some people to see the hardships associated with freelance writing until you see that they're being affected by the same laws that are supposed to protect the workers.
Yeah, Kendra said it's been a mess. Kendra, do you live in California? Like I said, it takes a couple minutes or seconds for the comments to come through. So if she answers, we'll see it in like a minute. But yeah, well, also I used to work as a contractor for an engineering company. So my degree is in mechanical engineering. And so I worked for a contractor that worked for a large company. And like, I was an employee. Like, there's no reason I should have been a contractor, except that they like to do that because
right, no healthcare. They keep you under a certain amount of hours, and
yeah, and also and this is like a public perception thing. In a downswing, they'll just let all the contractors go and say we didn't let anyone go in the downswing.
Right. It's kind of terrible, all the little ways that people invent to protect shareholders and their bottom line, and to avoid the effects of law. Again, law is meant to protect the workers. They just say, well, we're not actually going to abide by the spirit of the law. We will abide by the letter of the law. And sucks to be all you guys. It's going to get worse. So I don't know. It's kind of disappointing.
Yeah. I worked with, also when I worked at Anheuser-Busch, we worked with a lot of contractors in our construction management division. And so I don't really understand the intricacies of the law, but like they could only work under direct management of a company for 5 years before they had to go to a different company as a contractor. And so they would literally just like cycle these guys out every 5 years.
That's so hard.
Yeah.
That's
Especially
like
you're doing something like that. It's like construction. Like it really helps to know, like, this is like a terrible phrase, but like where all the bodies are buried,
No, it's true. And all the ins and outs of the specific, my husband works in construction. So it's like, you really need to know like how certain people build in certain areas, or like what was, what the one guy down at the permit department likes to see on the permit, because it's not the law. It's just the way they run things. It's hard. And of course it's really hard for people who are going to be out, like they're in their last year, and like they just saved up enough to, I don't know, start a family, buy a house, have a kid, do whatever, take their next steps. But then they know their job's out next year. So what do they do? No job security. It's terrible.
Yeah. Kendra said no, but I'm a freelancer.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. And I know several other states are looking at similar laws. So we might see this kind of like spread across the country.
Yeah.
But I know right now California freelancers are at a disadvantage because a lot of multi-state organizations are just choosing not to hire them to avoid the situation entirely. So it's sad. Yeah. Heather's here. Sorry I'm late. No problem, Heather.
Hey. All right. Well, let me move on from that kind of depressing. I'm always like looking on the bad side. Sorry, I hope I'm not a depressing guest. But okay, so private equity firm KKR, the same firm that previously took over Toys R Us, has acquired Overdrive from Rakuten. Overdrive is an app that delivers digital content like ebooks and audiobooks to school and libraries. So I wonder how this is going to affect everything, because I love using it. I love checking out books on my Kindle from the library app that Brooklyn Public Library. It's so convenient and it's so easy. And so I hope that nothing affects my reading library checkout book habit.
Your personal usage.
I know. Obviously I hope that it is fine in general and that nothing bad happens to anyone else. But it's so rare that I'm like, please just leave me personally alone. Like, I don't want to suffer this one, but I mean, I get it.
I have Overdrive on my phone for audiobooks.
Oh yeah.
Because I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I may talk about that from time to time. But yeah, especially before. So now that I write for Book Riot, publishers like send me a lot of audiobooks. But before it was like almost entirely like Overdrive. And so, yeah. And also with all the, it seems like publishers are kind of like taking issue with libraries and ebooks and
that Macmillan thing. I wonder if that's going to affect their, I don't know how like the collision of those two things is going to change stuff.
So yeah, we'll just wait and kind of see what happens. And this is the company that took over Toys R Us, which by the way, like closed from bankruptcy. So Kendra said, I'm so worried about Overdrive. Ebony said, I use the Libby app and I love it. Libby is an Overdrive app. Yeah.
It's so easy and accessible.
And then we have a couple different apps that do ebooks and audiobooks at the library that I work at. And Overdrive is definitely, and Libby, the easiest to use. Like RB Digital, I don't know who owns RB Digital, but that app is a nightmare. It's really hard to use. I'm like, I work for the library and I can't figure out how to use this.
Yeah. We don't need to make it harder. Things are already hard enough getting people to read.
All right, so I think we're ready to bring in our special guest.
Yes, Dhonielle, I love.
I don't know what that name is, but Overdrive and Libby are my life. I'm also hoping nothing changes negatively. So
yes.
Yeah. All right.
Same.
Though sometimes private equity firms buy out companies and nothing happens. So
that's true. No, it's true. It could be maybe part of a larger strategy. I don't know. Could make it better. I'm not sure. It really it could be just an information thing too, trying to get people's reading habits. It's so weird what people are doing with like how they handle information and stuff like that too. Kind of scary.
All right. So we're going to bring on Dhonielle now. Dhonielle Clayton is a New York Times bestselling author of the Bella series, the co-author of the Tiny Pretty Things series, and the forthcoming The Rumor Game. She hails from the Washington, D.C. suburbs on the Maryland side. She taught secondary school for several years and is a former elementary and middle school librarian. She is COO of the nonprofit We Need Diverse Books and co-founder of Cake Literary, a creative kitchen whipping up decadent and decidedly diverse literary confections for middle grade, young adult, and women's fiction readers. She is an avid traveler and always on the hunt for magic and mischief. So please welcome Dhonielle Clayton. Hi.
Yay, I'm so excited. I'm also in Hawaii, so I'm like super close to where Heidi is.
I know.
I'm very happy.
I know. You're just on the other side of those mountains.
Yes. We're going to come over those mountains and see you. We're coming.
Wave to each other.
Yeah, we're coming.
Yes.
Well, so you're both traveling right now, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all for taking time to be on the show while you're traveling. That's
Thanks
really
for
great.
Asking me to come on. I'm so excited.
Of course.
Super excited to be here.
Yeah, Dhonielle was also on my one of the first people I thought of when I started developing the show of people that I wanted on. So I'm so excited.
Yay!
I feel like I've been so blessed this year. Like everyone that I've really wanted on the show has agreed, and I'm overwhelmed.
Because you're awesome. So it's perfect.
Heather says, "Hi, Dhonielle."
Hi, Heather.
Oh, Hawaii sounds nice. Yeah, it's nice
Yes.
that it's all like light there and
It is. I know.
It is.
Well, you were just saying that you are also in warm weather, so you can't be
Yes.
too upset.
That backdrop, friends, is a lie.
Yeah.
Fake
like-
news.
Fake news.
It's like 77 degrees here. So Jessica said, I didn't know Dhonielle is CEO of We Need Diverse Books. Yep.
I am.
Yes, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I'm so excited.
Oh, Heather, this is so nice. Heather said, who wouldn't say yes for you, Sarah? That's
Exactly.
Thank you. All right. Well, let's see. We're going to jump right into the questions. So you're co-founder of Cake Literary. Can you tell a little more about what Cake Literary does?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's such a weird process because people don't really talk about this thing called packaging that has been a part of the children's book industry since the beginning of time. So some of our favorite books, like The Babysitter's Club, Gossip Girl, things like that, are created by a team of people in a room. And then several writers write under a pen name to make it happen because teens get so excited about these books and kids, and they want so many of them voraciously. So my business partner and I, we met when we were in grad school, Sona Tirapatra, and she was going to take a job at one of the biggest packagers there is called Alloy Entertainment. And I was working for an agent who worked for and sold books for. We should do something like this. I was a librarian at the time, working in Harlem and trying to get my kids things to read that excited them, and that was fun. And there really wasn't a lot of things. And I thought, why can't we use the packaging model to, one, help marginalized content creators get into publishing and give them their training wheels, push them in, crash course, and then also get lots of fun stories on the shelves. So that's how Cake Literary is born. We believe that making a book is like making a cake. If you had to eat cake in one flavor for your whole life, it would be really boring. So we think that organic diversity, like different flavors of cake, makes the whole experience of reading much better. And so we wanted it to be fun, and we want to do a lot of fun books and exciting books that are just about kids who have to save the world or save their family or save their neighborhood, but they happen to come from lots of different backgrounds. And so that's how sort of Cake came to be.
Nice.
In a nutshell. Yeah. I know it's a weird concept for a lot of people to sort of grasp and understand.
It's actually the first time I ever heard about packaging at all was hearing about Cake. And it's such a fascinating idea, like to have a team. I feel like in general, in as a novelist, it's so everyone is focused on just the one author, the one person, and sometimes the relationship between the author and the editor, or maybe the author and their critique partner. But I find the idea of coming from the theater background, the idea of having a collaborative process and people to bounce ideas off of, I find that those are the ideas that are the best, is the ideas that are tested by more than one person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, obviously, I think it comes out in the work that you guys produce.
We really try.
Quality.
You're not alone.
Yes, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you have to get it by someone else who's also really, like Sona's very smart.
Yes.
So you can't really toss anything by her, and she can't toss anything by you. So
yeah, yes, absolutely. She's very discriminating.
Yes. So speaking of diversity, you're the Chief Operating Officer of the wonderful nonprofit that is called We Need Diverse Books. Can you explain a bit about what you do there and your role as COO?
Yes, I work with the awesome L&O in managing and watching and fundraising for our various programs, because we believe that every kid deserves to be the hero of a story and to be able to walk into their classroom or their library or the bookstore and find stories that reflect their experience, where they are the heroes of a story. And so we manage all of these different programs that try to get at this issue of why there is a lack of diverse representation at every level in publishing. And so we designed all of these different programs to try to get at changing those numbers and making sure that we're telling the truth about what the children in America look like, and what kind of stories they deserve to see, and also making sure that publishing can provide that need. And so I do a lot of things. It's from signing check requests to designing programs, to giving speeches, to working with Ellen, thinking about our 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan, to working with all of the various heads of all of our different programs to strategize. Is this thing working? What do we need to adjust now that publishing is starting to listen a bit? How can we go to the next level? Can we get from diversity 101 to diversity 201? Like, how do we make that next step? So I do a lot of different things with the organization.
Yeah,
and it's been a lot of fun.
You're very public facing too. Like, you get contacted a lot for like interviews, requests, and that kind of thing, right?
Yes, I get the interview requests, and I also get the hate mail. So it comes with the territory. But
how dare they, for starters? But also, how foolish.
I know.
Because
it's like,
I can't imagine being silly enough to try to tangle with you, Dhonielle.
Right. I know. They try. They do try. And I laugh and I save them, and I'm just like, oh, you're so mad. You're very mad that we want to make sure that
you.
Right. It feeds my petty bones, and it feeds all of the work that I do. And it just makes me know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is making sure that every kid deserves to be able to see themselves as an awesome hero and doing their own thing, and that we hold people accountable and we tell them the truth. We tell the truth. Because what everyone wants is for us to be quiet. And so, and we won't be quiet. And so that's the problem, I think. People love to tell women, especially women of color, to be quiet. And so L&O is never going to be quiet, and neither am I. And I just think that it's, I do give a lot of speeches, and hopefully we'll be moving forward past the speeches and more into sort of like have all of these sort of even more tough talks so that they can translate into action.
Yeah,
watching the RWA stuff, I'm like, it's time to have some talks.
Yeah, I've seen you talk before about everyone, whenever you're interviewed about we need diverse books, everyone always asks the same questions, and you're answering the same questions over and over again.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
So what is that?
Can I have permission to write a character?
How dare you get me? Yes, that question all the time.
Yeah.
Like, is it okay if I write? And I'm like, I'm not here
but
to.
I know someone,
right?
Who
my neighbor is,
and I know her first name, not her last, but her first name.
She is from the African American community. She is an African American, and can I write her story? No, ma'am. So I get the same questions over and over again. And, what happens is people don't like the answer. Yeah. So it's very frustrating.
I had one particular person who I was talking about certain words that I don't like being used casually, crazy. And she messaged me and she's like, well, I have this in my bio. Can I use this like this? I was like, no, like that's exactly what I was talking about. And then she came back with, well, Urban Dictionary said I can use it like this.
So why are you wasting my time and asking me a question like that?
And then,
like, I just don't get it.
Yeah, and then she tried to like report me to the at that time managing director of Pitch Wars.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like,
everybody loves to call someone's manager.
Yeah.
And it's like, ma'am, it doesn't matter. You asked me a question. You asked me a question,
but
and
also
I answered
the
it.
Dictionary defense is like the worst defense, and then to use the Urban Dictionary defense is like a step below, like the
like using
worst.
Wikipedia.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
The thought
Urban
of
Dictionary. Yeah.
Right in Wikipedia, it said, okay.
Because everyone knows like Urban Dictionary is like super, sensitive and
and accurate too, and should be the final word on what we should all be saying.
Yeah, I just really don't have time for it. And the problem is that when you answer directly and clearly, no matter how nice you are, because you've said no, people get mad. It's as if you left a pile of dog poo on their doorstep. They behave as if being told no is like being given a pile of dog poo. And it's like, no, it's welcome to the land of nope. This happened to me at an SCBWI conference where a woman literally asked me after I gave a speech, is there room for white children in publishing anymore? in books. And I just was like, first of all, my soul left my body in that moment. Okay. It just came through the top right here. Number one. Number two, I was like, we just went through the stats. We went through the stats. You saw all of those mirrors. You saw it visually represented. You saw a table. And yet you still ask me this question. And it's like, what do you want me to say? Do you want me to be mean to you? What is it? And
just say, no, no one's publishing.
The funny thing is, isn't it like 30% of characters are white kids, but like 60% are animals, and they're never coming after the animals?
No.
They're never like, Rover.
Exactly. Why aren't you yelling at the truck?
In a
Go
book.
get those trucks. Yeah. And I just don't understand the person that asks questions like that. I just wonder, I'm like, who raised you? Who's your mother that allowed you to ask questions with such, like, it's so, the audacity. I'm like, whoa. What? And I just have to control my face and say, okay, there are 100 people watching you right now. So make sure that you smile, because it doesn't matter what you say. You're going to be that mean Black lady who says no. And I just said, welcome to the land of nope. The weather is bad here. Right. And I've lived here for a long time. So welcome to the family. No, like, this is absurd to me. So it's just one of those things where we just have to be resilient and keep put our line in the sand and say, no, this is what it is. We're no longer lying. We're no longer going to cater to, in romance land, they're saying the NWLs, which I just love that term. I've never heard that term. The nice white ladies. NWL.
Okay. I was like, that could go wrong fast. I'm glad.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. And I'm just like, oh, that's the perfect term. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not catering to you anymore. I'm going to be just as nice, but I'm also still going to tell you no. And I'm still going to tell you the truth that this is a problem.
That was part of like the initial defense, is like the person that that kind of like started all of this is, oh, well, she can't be racist because she's so nice and she sold a lot of books.
I just
it's like,
oh, okay.
So just so you know, if you sell a lot of books, you can't be racist. So.
Right. Yeah.
I got to work on that.
Me too. Let's wait. Let's see what happens. How many books does it take? How many books? It's like, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop? How many books does it take for you to not be a bigot and a racist and have a clan outfit in your wardrobe? Like, how many does it take? What's the threshold? So we'll wait. We'll wait for that. It'll be interesting. People are so foolish. It's one of those things where it's like, we want to not have true conversations. And that's the first step, is like, let's just take an accounting of the numbers. Let's look at the numbers, and then let's have a conversation, and let's put our fragility away and say, like, this is what it is. And let's get down to business. Because when we have this conversation about, the fact that men talk more than women in meetings and in events, and men do X, Y, and Z, everyone is ready to have, all the women are ready to have that conversation. Yeah, those men, they talk so much, they take up so much space. What about when you take up too much space? How come we can't have that conversation? How come you want to crumple then? How come the fragility shows itself when it's time for us to have this conversation in our space? Now, all of a sudden, it's a problem. And so with We Need Diverse Books and with all of the work that I do, I want to have real conversations and say, hey, this is not an attack. This is not pointing fingers. It's about taking an accounting of the system and seeing how we can fix it. And that means that some of us have to be quiet, and that's okay. You will not die because you have to be quiet in this conversation. You can listen, and we can sort of talk about how you can help and how we can work together and move forward to make sure that every child gets the things that they deserve and the things that they need. Yeah. I try to say it nicely, but it doesn't really matter. That's what I found.
I did want to say something. I forgot to say something earlier. If you're watching on Twitter, you have to click through to YouTube to see the comments and participate in the comments conversation and stuff. So if you're watching on Twitter, because I just saw my Twitter notifications, I have a couple comments there. So yeah, make sure you click on through to YouTube, because that's where the conversation is, where I can see it anyway. All right, so Heather is giving you applause.
Yay! Yes.
Ebony says, yes, can we have a real conversation about it, please?
It's time. It's time for real
Yeah.
talk. And in 2020, there's no more placating of the feelings. There's no more of us like skirting around this conversation. No, we have to speak plainly, and everyone can put your feelings are your responsibility. So
Yeah.
it's time for you to take responsibility for your feelings, but we're still going to have a frank conversation about these topics.
Now, speaking of having real conversations, I know you've been doing this for a really long time. I mean, it's been like 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
Feels
And
like
you
1,000
mentioned
84 years.
Well, you mentioned that you feel like publishing companies are starting to respond and listen for once, and it does seem like the numbers are changing, but very, very slightly, very slowly. And they may be changing more in the fact that like certain books by maybe authors of color are given that push a little bit more than they used to be. Not more than white authors, but more than used to be true of authors of color in general. And I was just wondering how you find the conversation changing as you switch from Diversity 101 to Diversity 201. What do you feel like the questions are that we should be, asking ourselves, questions that we should be asking of other people, ways that we can jump in and kickstart the conversation and bring it up a notch?
I have a lot of thoughts.
I want to hear them.
I think for Diversity 201, it's time for us to talk about, I'm so excited that so many authors are getting that push. It's time for lots of different books to have an opportunity in the marketplace, right? Now we need to talk about what kinds of books get that opportunity, because it's still an anointing process, right? It's still certain horses are bet on. And so I will speak about my community specifically. In the African American community are books about Black children and Black teens and Black people. We still love certain narratives. There's certain narratives that are always a bet on, right? The rags to riches, the impoverished kid is plunked out, or we've got sort of police brutality, we've got slavery, we've got all of these kinds of, Black person has to deal and help the white person with their racism, aka Green Book type of stories that the establishment loves to push forward. And so for Diversity 201, I want us to take a look at that. I want us to take a look at what kinds of horses we bet on when the horse is allowed to be in the race. Why does it always have to be those kinds of stories? Why can't it be a love story? Why can't it be something that is not associated with the pain in someone's background? Why do we exploit the same and press the same bruises? Why does everything that I engage with that is from my community that gets the push and gets the boom out, why does it have to be about brutalizing Black bodies or terrorizing them with the sins of the past or with police or, and these stories need to be told, but I'm looking for a balance, and I'm looking for a more variety of stories. But I see that it's easy for us to create those shortcuts, and it's easy for the establishment to create those shortcuts for universal understanding. Creating something like the Green Book or a story like the Green Book is easier and more palpable to the masses, I guess, to the mainstream. But then I'm like, why do I have to have that story over and over again? Why is it that story? Where are my love stories? Where are my stories for outer space? Where are my stories that are just about a kid who has to deal with being upset or anger or losing a friend, who happens to be Black and has all of those things that come with it, but it's just about that thing. So that's the 201 conversation that I would like to have. Now that we are bringing people forward, let's talk about what stories we continue to trot out that still continue to make the mainstream happy.
And how do so as a follow-up question, may I? I'm sorry, I'm so excited to have you here to talk about this specifically instead of just be like, let's just talk about fun stuff. But I mean, not that this isn't fun, but it's it's also
we're getting in there.
But so where do you think that responsibility lies, and how does that responsibility change depending on who it can't just sit with the writer, it can't just sit with the editor or the agent or the other gatekeepers, and I feel like so much of that responsibility is in the consumer.
Yes.
But maybe I'm wrong. I feel like I try to always tell people because I speaking for myself, right? I love stories about crazy people because I'm crazy. sorry, I know the word, but as a person who is mentally ill myself, I like stories about mentally ill people, and there's something about the groove of, I mean, movies like The Joker, where there's something, it's like eating a freaking deep fried pork hash. It's so satisfying. And it's so bad for me. And like, I just don't know, how do you, I know I shouldn't be consuming stuff like this, but there's something about it that is also still appealing to me. And it's just because I have that mental groove, and I sit there so easily because of what I've learned.
I mean, we should consume those stories. It's about, what if every book about someone like you was the Joker? What if there were 1,000 of those books and there was never a love story? And there was never a story of you going and saving the world, or a story of you going to outer space, or a story of you just having to deal with the bullshit of high school, right? What if it was always just the Joker? What if
how do we push that how do we deepen that other groove, the rest of the landscape? Do we have to sort of remove the story? Like, I think
it's about pressing gatekeepers and editors and all of the powers that be to talk about variety, and saying, when you are purchasing books, if you are always purchasing books about pain that come from a certain community, because that is your bias, that is something that speaks to you. If you are always buying some iteration of The Help or To Kill a Mockingbird over and over and over again, you are part of a system that is propagating the same dangerous single story about a group of people. And it's not on the writer. So I might want to write that book over and over again because it's something that bothers me, yes, but it's about variety across the board. And I talk about this a lot when I go speak to librarians and teachers about building classroom libraries responsibly and looking for balance. And I have a balance checklist. It's like, if all of your stories about Native and Indigenous people are set in the past, that is a problem. If you are a person who buys picture books as an editor, and every time you buy something that has Native content and written by an outsider, you have to check your bias. And that publishing house also has to check for balance and think about, we put out over the last 5 years 15 books about Black people, and all of them have to do with police brutality and overcoming adversity and racism. Every single one. And it's sort of like thinking about, how can we have a variety and usher in a variety of different kinds of stories? I think writers can write whatever they want. And if those are the things that bother you and you want to write them over and over again, that's true. But the marketplace, I think, has a responsibility to have a variety of stories. And that's where I find the problem, is that every single sort of story that deals with me, when I create my book list, I'm like, we keep hitting on a lot of the same topics here all the time. And I'm like, great, we have to still talk about these issues societally, but I'm just looking for variety. In the next 10 years, I'm looking for a variety of stories. And this really comes from, I have a 14-year-old niece, or she's about to be 14. And she made a comment to me like a month ago. She was like, all the books and all of the stories that feature girls that look like me are sad. I just want to fall in love. Like, where are those? And then we watched all of the adaptations, and she was like, gosh, there are no Black girls in any of these adaptations. Or if there is one, she's a demon in Sabrina and her hair looks bad. And I was just like, oh my God, this is like, we are failing a group, lots of different types of kids. She deserves to see a love story where it's just a girl who looks like her. We look just alike. That just falls in love. And the biggest drama she has is whether or not to choose one person or the other, or that her mom's going to be mad, or that like she feels like she can't, figure things out. Where's that story? We're not pushing those narratives forward. We're not giving opportunities for those books to be trotted forward, because it's easier to sell the book that is redoing To Kill a Mockingbird or about slavery and civil rights, because it's a story we know, it's familiar, it's an easy bet. It's like, why do we always keep creating franchise material in Hollywood? Because they know it's a sure bet for sales. Oh, they're going to go see the Marvel movie. Absolutely. They're going to go see this IP. It's an easy, sure bet to create shortcuts about people. Each community has a shortcut that is easily digestible to outsiders. And we continue to put that easily digestible shortcut to the front of the line and let that be the single story. And I think I'm just tired of it. And that's the 201 conversation. That's the hard conversation to have. Nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's like, we've let you do these things. We've put these books forward. And I'm like, yes, but let's talk about what else we have. Like, I'm excited to look for what sort of Black queer love stories or queer stories with POC love interests. I'm waiting for that, right? At the intersections. Like, I'm waiting for that sort of next step. What does it mean to be mentally ill and a person of color? Because a lot of these intersections that we find, it's still just the white kid dealing with the thing. And it's like, well, all of these things look different when they are in different communities.
Yeah, and you also see like pushback whenever someone has a character who's a person of color and also has mental illness and is also queer. They'll say, oh, that's too much. You're ticking too many boxes, you know?
Right. And you're like, really? Okay, so this is my life. Okay.
Yeah,
great,
those
thanks.
people exist, you know?
Right. Like, oh, it's too much? Okay. I didn't know that my whole life is too much and that people like me didn't exist. So I just think that when you go to schools and you're with teens, they live on multiple axes like that at multiple intersections, and they deserve better.
Yeah.
Than to be boiled down to that one story.
Yeah.
That was my rant.
No, it's good.
It actually leads to, though, I mean, because you have stories like that, and some of them are being adapted.
Yes.
This is a good segue, right? I think because then we can celebrate, right?
Yeah. So you recently had the chance to visit the set of Tiny Pretty Things, the Netflix adaptation of your book. What was that like?
It was so weird. And so I'm so excited to see Tiny Pretty Things hit Netflix next fall. It's weird because it feels like you're in a big dollhouse of your own creation. You're walking through these different sets that are literally from your book, which is from your brain. And so it's just this really surreal experience. And then also you've noticed that people have broken your toys and reassembled them in very interesting ways. When something is adapted, it's translated right to a different medium. So it's not quite the same shoe that you created. And it's great because usually, hopefully, it's better. That's like what you always want. So it was really awesome to see what they've done. And I'm really happy with a lot of the changes that they've made to the source material and the way they've pushed it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what everyone thinks of all the drama.
I remember reading Tiny Pretty Things, now years ago.
I know,
just being like,
so old.
ballet dancers of color, and like I cannot wait for creepy, broken toy, Black Swan ballet dancers of color on screen. It's going to be so thrilling.
And I'm excited because some of the things that we did in the book, some of the things that are stereotypically attached to the women of ballet have now been given to other characters, have been given to the men to sort of address how they're left out of that conversation. And also this is something that consumes the ballet world in general.
Is the dancing also great?
Yes, they only hire dancers.
I feel like I was like waiting for Cats, and then I was like, I can't watch Cats.
I know.
But I can instead get ready for Tiny Pretty Things. So I'm like, I'm glad that I can occupy.
They only hired actors that were dancers and classically trained in ballet.
Oh, wow.
So the dancing is extraordinary, which is great because what I didn't want was some sort of terrible, cheesy ballet where I was cringing the entire time, because this is about, they're artists, but they're also athletes. And so I'm excited to see them sort of do their thing. And it was really awesome and overwhelming and exhausting to be on set, but also like, what is happening? What is life? This is so weird. So I'm super excited for everyone to get a taste of the drama and just to see how they, to see actually how people translate work in lots of different ways.
And when does that come out?
Next fall.
Oh,
okay. Nice.
So I'm excited.
I'm so excited. Like, I'm sorry. I'm just like, oh, all right. Yeah. I can wait. I'll be fine. Time will fly. All right.
We'll do some parties in New York. We'll do a watch party. We'll do
Oh, I'm so sad. So, cool. So far away.
Yes.
All right.
So let me ask you, do we have tons of time left? I want to
probably just one more question, and then one more question from each of us.
Okay, so I wanted to ask about, because this is heavily on my mind right now, is deadlines. You are so busy. You have so many things on your plate. You are, you're an activist. You're an artist. You got Netflix. You got all this other stuff. How do you juggle all your deadlines and keep everything and still manage to have a vacation?
Oh, vacation is a word that is used lightly because I'm still working while I'm here. I just changed location.
Oh,
So yes, I have a lot of deadlines and it is always ridiculously chaotic. But I live and die by my planner. And I was a teacher for many years. So I had to manage lots of little people. And that is very difficult. Heidi, you've got 2 little ones. So like they got to do this, they got to do this. We have to make sure they're still alive, make sure that they get to the point A to point Z. And I think that that's how I function. My books are my little people. And so I just manage them in the same way that I was managing my students, where I was tracking them and I was like, doing check-ins and watching the board. And I just create a really precise plan for every week, for every day, every week, and every month, and every 3 months, and every 6 months. I don't always manage to hit all of my goals and deadlines, but I try to that's how I treat all of my deadlines like that. And so this year has been a little bit ridiculous because I had to play catch up. I had some surgeries in 2018 that threw me behind on a lot of things. And so I have been playing catch up this year and had to turn in a lot of things and get myself out of a little bit of a hole. But the reason why I like to plan these vacations or staycations where I go and I stay in a place is because now I can have my work with me, but I'm in a very relaxed state because now I have rewards. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Hawaii, so I can work for a little bit, but then I can go beach for 5 or 6 hours and then go back to my computer. And like, I can really segment my time and recharge my well. And so I try to purposefully do a lot of that so that I can be at my peak performance of sort of creating. But it's chaos over here. Always.
All right, good. I feel a little better about that.
I'm a mess. I'm a constant mess. So falling off of my bus. I do, but it is a lot of, eating cookies and drinking soda and getting a pimple and like yelling and screaming and pacing and like then having to take a bath and stress out and listening to audiobooks and get myself together and then gorging on food. Like it's a lot of that. I just don't put that on Instagram.
I'm so glad to hear that you handle stress similarly to me.
I know. I feel like everyone's a little bit like, oh, all right.
I'm good then.
Cookies. And then I'm like, I'm going to go eat this big meal. And then my stomach's all a mess. And then I'm like, oh, and then, it's just all of the things. I just hide it.
All right. So last question is the question I ask all the guests on the show.
This is a very mean question.
I gave you a heads up.
I did. I prepared.
Ebony, everyone always makes this face, don't they? Like she commented on it last time when Michael was like, oh. Yeah. So what's the most important book you've ever read?
Well, because I'm a librarian and I'm a rule breaker, I'm going to give you 3 because there are 3 different categories and you cannot just boil it down to the most important book, one book. Okay. Wow. So for me, the most important adult book for myself was Nella Larsen's Passing. It's such a wonderful book. It's very short and it's about 2 women who are best friends and they can pass for white. One passes for white when she just wants special opportunities in the 1920s. Another one decides to leave the community and pass forever. And they run into each other as adults. And it's about sort of them facing their friendship and sort of the risks of doing that. Brilliant. I think it's the book that made me want to write something. The children's book that I think is most important, even though unfortunately we're going to have to separate the book from its artist because she is, we can't even get into that. Miss J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, she who should not be named, now has replaced Voldemort. But Harry Potter, for me, is a book that taught me that some children want to be able to leave their own world and be immersed in another. And there's something beautiful about that. They are looking for doors and windows into other places that are so much more interesting than the place that they're in. And I think that the Harry Potter world has done that and changed generations of readers, despite all of its issues. And then YA, last one, since I'm such a rule breaker. One of the most important YAs, I think, right now, because I think YA is a genre that this book should be rotating and changing every couple of years, is from my nemesis, Jason Reynolds. It's called Long Way Down. And it follows a boy who has to make a decision about whether or not he's going to do a thing in the time it takes for him to get on the elevator and get to the first floor to leave to go do the thing. And it's just a beautiful book that I think poses a deep moral question for teens, what to do about anger and what happens when you feel like you've been wronged and you're sort of boxed in a corner. Like, what are you going to do about it? And that book, I think, poses such a good question that gets teens thinking. And that, I think, is the purpose for YA, to get them thinking, to get them sort of wrestling with a lot of the bullshit that they have to deal with in adolescence. So I broke your rules because most important book ever is too hard and it should be by category.
Dhonielle Clayton, rule breaker.
Yeah. You're actually
Maker.
the first person to break the rules, which is surprising to me.
Wow.
I'm not afraid to usurp.
Can I ask why you call Jason your nemesis? I've seen you say that before.
Because he trolls me. We are very good friends.
Yeah.
I mean, and I love
He's
telling
also
it.
really tall, and she is very little next to him. She looks
Yes.
very tiny.
Yes,
Tiny,
and
pretty thing.
Yeah, and he trolls me. And so the first time, like, we had an interaction, he was talking about buying a couch. And I teased him and I said, oh, you should get like a white pleather couch. And he was like, oh, like your face? And I was like, okay. So that was our first interaction ever. And after that, it was on, right? So now you see, everyone's like, oh, we love him. He's so great. Oh my God. Right? So.
Yeah, I met him once. He came down for, he came down for a library thing actually, but Lisa Lucas was also here and did a talk and he came to it and I got to meet him and yeah, he was super nice. He hugged me. I was just like, don't
be fooled. Don't be impressed. Don't be fooled. No, but like I love telling students that because they all read him and I'm like, oh, my nemesis. And they're like, oh my God. And so like he's great. He's awesome. He's one of my best friends. But I have to troll him a little bit just because he's too good. So I have to knock him down a peg and make sure he knows. Like he might be tall. He might be tall and talented, but like I'm awesome too. So he's just my nemesis.
Yeah. Even I look tiny next to him. I'm not a small person. I'm a tall person.
And it's not fair.
Cool.
These things aren't fair. So, but yeah.
Well, Dhonielle, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
Yeah, we had a great time. And like, we totally threw our script out the window because we were just having a great conversation. No, it's totally fine.
I just was so excited to talk to her.
Totally fine. Do not worry about it at all.
Did we derail everything? Was there supposed to be
I just
other
kept asking questions based on what you had said instead of based on what I had promised to ask.
Oh, shoot.
No, it's totally fine. Don't worry about it at all. Trust me. I do say, like, when I send the show notes, I tell the guest co-host, I was like, I want you to act like this is your show. Like, you should feel free to direct it. And you did. So that's great.
Okay.
And Heidi and I are troublemakers and we're friends. And so we just do what we want to do and we cut up and we're trouble. So
no, it's fine. So Dhonielle, can you just tell us what you have coming out next and where we can find you?
Awesome. So you can find me on all of the platforms at Brown Bookworm. And I have a book coming out with my co-writer, Sona Charapatra, called The Rumor Game, and it follows the destructive path of a rumor, the girl who starts it, the girl who the rumor is about, and the girl who is collateral damage. And it really examines sort of when you grow up in a political fishbowl, like I did in the Washington, D.C. area, how the things you say about people can really travel, and what can happen in the age of social media and the swarm. So that's coming, and I'm very, very, very excited. And then also the Netflix show is coming in the fall. So super excited about these fun things.
Yeah. And you can find her website and her links down in the description below as well. So they're already there.
And thanks so much. This was like the best thing I've done. This was such a great thing to go out on at, the end of the year, like on a high. Like, I'm like, I feel like refreshed. Like, okay, publishing Publishing's good.
You sure it wasn't the pool, just like being in the water that was
I
refreshing?
mean, that too. But like,
I'm sure that helps.
This was such a great, fun conversation. And I just feel, blessed to be able to be on here. And thank you for choosing me.
Oh, thanks so much for coming. So if you want to hang around and talk with Heidi and I after, you can do that. But if you need to go, feel free to go.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. That was fun.
That was great.
Really
I love Dhonielle. I love you. You were so much fun. This is a great show. And all the listeners, thank you so much for your comments and your participation. Yeah. It's so fun to do something live and like have people like weighing in.
Yeah. So it is time for audiobook of the week. Almost everyone knows I love audiobooks, so I decided to add this segment because I love audiobooks and I want to talk about them. However, I was a judge for the Audies, and so I just spent like the last 2 months just listening to those books, which I'm not allowed to talk about. And so I had to go back a little bit to pull this audiobook a week. This is one I actually listened to a little while ago. And yeah, it's Test of the Road by Rachel Hartman, who coincidentally is actually going to be the guest on the next episode. So she'll be here January 11th. Yeah.
Awesome. Ask her how she did such a masterpiece.
It is.
Ask her for me.
So it's a companion novel to Serafina, which was her first book. Well, at least the first book that I know of. I actually don't know if it was her first book. But it features Tess, and it's a character-driven fantasy novel with a, quote, unlikable heroine and a rather kind of slow plot. And I loved absolutely every second of it because it's masterfully done. It's really good. After I finished reading it, I kind of had to sit with myself for a while, So I love that book. So if you haven't listened to it, and the narration is great as well. So the audio book narrators is really great. I can't remember who it is right now, but I do remember it being awesome. So yeah, go check that out. And of course, Heidi's books are great on audio as well.
Oh yeah, no, the Emily Wu Zeller did a great job. I think she won
she's
an
one of my
Audie
favorites
last year for Muse of Fire. Yeah, she was great. she is great.
She is great, yeah.
And she will hopefully do the next one also. So
yeah, she's one of my favorites. Let's see. Jessica said, love from Chicago where it's not 70 degrees plus.
Oh, sorry. Sending some warm tropical breezes your way.
Ebony said she just borrowed Test of the Road on Libby.
Ooh,
comes back full circle. Yeah.
Yes.
So cool. And then Heather said she'll check out Test of the Road. Earlier when we were talking about Long Way Down, a couple of people commented that they had listened to it and Jason narrates it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I need to listen to that then.
Yeah, it's a great book. I've only read it, but it's just great. I can't imagine how the poetry is expressed verbally by the author himself. It just must be amazing. So
definitely. All right. So it's time to discuss our viewer poll. Do you belong to a writers organization or group? And I'm going to pull up the results. We'll see. I haven't looked at them. So let's see what this looks like. Let's see. 54% said no, they don't belong to any. 12% say they belong to a local one. 18% say they belong to a national one. And 16.4% say they belong to both a local and a national group. So that's surprising that so many people don't belong to one at all. That surprised me anyway.
Huh. Do you belong to one?
Yeah, so let's see.
Or more than one.
Well, I was gonna say, I was a member of SCBWI until very recently, and my membership lapsed and I didn't renew it, but I probably will renew it. The Florida chapter is pretty active. Cool. And there's a group in Celebration, which is like the town that Disney built.
Yeah, I've heard about that place.
Yeah.
My whole family, or my husband's whole family, loves Disney, and they always are like, maybe we should go there one day.
And so there's a really nice group that meets in Celebration too. So, and then, but I have like there's like a local community here. Well, like my job is I plan author and writing events for a living. That's what I do.
Right.
And so I have a lot of that around me. It's more like informal communities rather than like an organization, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Same. I think there's something about the formality of a group that is, I think, so, I don't know, for me, it's hard to, it's like you gotta sign up and pay your dues and do, then you have to attend meetings, and wow, that's asking a lot. At least for me, I think it's like, I don't know, I got other stuff to do. But I think that probably a lot of writers are, it's like this weird thing, right? On the riding the line of being an introvert with your art, but then also being lonely with your art and wanting to seek out other artists in the same vein.
Yeah.
So there's probably a lot of that goes into the decision.
Yeah, I'm an extrovert, so I don't.
Same.
Just do whatever I want.
These things it's so hard because a lot of writers aren't, or by the time you get to talk to them, they're all like, it's too much.
Yeah, I always joke that like I have to have a lot of friends because being first an engineer, second a writer, and third a person who works at a library, literally everyone I know is an introvert. And they all can only hang out like once every like 3 weeks. And so I have to have a lot of friends so I can like fill my schedule. Yeah. Ebony said I would love to, but I just don't have the time. I'm working on that in 2020 though. And I run this Facebook page called Orlando Literati, which basically just promotes like all the Orlando area writing events. Nice. And one of my goals, hopefully I'll be able to make it happen this year, is to do some kind of like social only meeting. Because I don't know about New York, but in Orlando, the writing community is really siloed. So there's like the literary fiction people are like here, and then the like YA children's, communities here, and the romance communities here, and science fiction, fantasy, and they don't really cross over at all. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to do is kind of connect them a little bit, I guess.
Good. Yeah. No, I think that's a smart idea. I don't know. I think it's hard for me because I don't actually get as much as I love being out. I don't get out a lot because of the kids. So I think, but whenever I go, I see, there are people that the YA authors that do a lot of crossover, and, everyone has their set, they do YA, but they have a middle grade coming out, or they have an adult coming out. And so there's some cross-pollination there. And you'll see people at everyone else's events. So I think there's a little bit more, like I said, cross-pollination. So.
Yeah. I also feel like, but by the nature of New York, you have more people in general. And so in Orlando, we don't have that many. So there's really no reason for it to be so segregated like that, Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lively community here, but not to the scale of New York City. Probably.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, but I'm sure it's like, and sometimes it's better when you know people a little more personally, and, it can get a little more, I don't know, you can have those like deeper connections because it's not everyone and their dog, but you have to remember all their names and be like, I forgot who that face is.
Yeah. Let's see, what are people saying in the comments? Heather says INFP.
Oh no, introvert. It's okay. It's okay because you know your characters well, and that's all you really need. And then you make them do what you want them to do, and then they don't really. I mean, hopefully they don't sass you too badly. You can step away.
I'm a very new writer, so I haven't joined any groups yet, but I will. So far, I just have very great critique partners, so that's a great start.
Yeah, that's the money there. That's what you need.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna finish off with the quote of the week, which is another thing that I just do because I like to.
I love it.
But so it's funny because I actually chose this one in October. So in October, I just put like a whole bunch of quotes in a list. And then it just turns out that it's really great for the conversation that we had today and also the guests that we have today. So if there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. Toni Morrison.
True.
And I feel like both you and Dhonielle are really doing that. So
Thank you. No, it's fun. But it's true. It's like it's what propelled me to write. And I know But the other thing too that I find interesting is I wonder if the book is out there somewhere, but it wasn't ever given the push that I needed to find it.
Yeah,
Or other people
definitely
needed to find it.
possible.
So, yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Heidi, so much for hanging out with me today and having this conversation with me.
Thank you for having me. I had such a great time, and I always love talking with you. So
yeah. And let me know, or let everyone watching know, like, what you have coming up. What's going on?
Oh, I have to finish my next book. I have The Girl from Everywhere is my first novel, and it was a duology. So The Girl from Everywhere and The Ship Beyond Time, about time traveling pirates. And the second series is about a shadow puppeteer necromancer who's also mentally ill like I am. And the third book in the series is coming out next fall, late next fall, because it's not handed in yet. But yeah, and then that series will be complete, and hopefully I'll be free to run off screaming into the woods. So that's what's up next. Right. I just have a break, and then I'll come back not screaming anymore. So
that's good. You can find Heidi's website and social media info in the description down below. And thank you so much for coming. And I'm gonna say goodbye to you, and I'll just close out the rest of the show.
Okay, bye. Nice to see you.
Bye. You too. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like and subscribe right down there so you don't miss another episode. And also tell your friends, because that is how people find out about stuff like this. There's a description down below. There's a link where you can subscribe via email so you can get an email reminder. And there's also a link for my Patreon. And so the Patreon money goes to help pay for like my technical costs, the platform and my camera and microphone and all the different stuff that I use. And so thank you so much to our Patreon subscribers. Their names are going to be in the outro. I appreciate them so much, and I'm just so happy that they continue to support the show. The social media for our guests, is in the description down below, along with the PubTalk Live social media information as well. And thank y'all so much for watching. Let's see if there are any comments to close out. Heather said bye. I have a lot of new books to read in the new year. So I will see y'all in 2020. We're going to have Rachel Hartman and Fran Wild are going to be my guests for the January 11th episode. So make sure you check that out. And I have a lot of really, really great guests coming next year. So I hope you'll come back next year. And I'm just like really excited for some of the guests that we have lined up. Thank you so much. Have a good new year. Bye.